We need to get started. We're going to shift subject. Of course, we're going to stick to the map sector, but we're going to focus on something different, that is to say CSR. We have our specialists that are already here on stage. They will have the floor, and in the second part of the afternoon, we'll have a break that will have to be shorter than the one on the plan because we can't finish late. And after the break, we're going to talk about another key issue, that is to say the research of the future in our sector. So please stay with us because we have key speakers that are really interesting to listen to. 𝗤𝗲 Rodriguez is going to lead this discussion. He's a highly innovative producer in organic production. He's also highly aware of CSR. I've spoken a lot with him about it, and I've worked with him. I know he's a reference, he's a resource person in that issue, and it was very important for us to have him with us to talk about it. So without further ado, I'm going to leave him the floor. He's going to give a brief presentation on his company, how they implement CSR there, and then he'll lead the discussion around CSR with different CSR managers in their respective companies.
Eh bien, bonjour à tous.
Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you can hear me well. Very briefly on the presentation on my company, you can scan the QR code at the end of the presentation. It will trigger a video that presents a lot of things I could say with words. Why I am here? Bioplans was created by myself and my partners. We wanted to use our experience in organic cultivation, and we wanted to come up with a company in which the governance would be alternative compared to what we used to have in the sector back in 2010. And we wanted to base our governance system on CSR, and we focused on sustainable development in terms of economy, ecology, and diversity, and many other aspects. 3 of us were vegetable producers, and I started a composting activity business with a French branch, and we wanted to use the competitive market for aromatic, but in Switzerland, because that's where we used to produce. So as the years went by, after 2 trips around France, we thought it was a nice country and we decided to stay. After that, key figures. After creating our company, we've integrated a new site that you can see on the internet, to keep it short. Key figures in 2024, 3.8 million euros turnover. There's only 1 full-time employee, but also various percentages. Thanks to our investment on a highly performant system based on ecology, we have increased our turnover very much since 2022. We have increased our use and recovery of rainfalls, rainwater. And we put organic matter in our water to boost compost so that our plants grow well. And in June, in a normal year, the rainfalls cover our needs for irrigation. 69% in 2023 were covered by rainfalls. We have two other key figures, 92%, 93%. These are our CSR-based labels. Bioplant was a key stakeholder in the design of specifications and reference books in CSR, especially SME+. We actually work with supermarkets, and we needed very strong commitments in terms of CSR. And we're among the 5 best-ranking companies out of 1,000 in our federation of companies. All these figures to show that CSR is something real. It was a tool we used from the start for governance, and now we have reference indicators to make sure we follow CSR. And we have defined our raison d'être from this. We want to be good producers for the planet, producing organically, sustainably products that are affordable and accessible. So through our values, we want to have a healthy, secured, sustainable production system, and we want our products to be accessible and affordable to everyone. And so that's why we targeted supermarkets. And how could we become competitive with other supermarket suppliers while being organic and CSR-oriented? You can flash this code to check our website. There's a 3D video. You can check us from every corner and know more about us. This is what I wanted to say about my company. I am an agronomic engineer, and I'm very pleased to be a member of the iteipmai. We've been members for a long time now, nearly since the beginning of the company. And today, I'm very pleased to have 3 great people with us. Alexandre Panel, who's in charge of the green mission in the 𝗕𝗏 company. He's also a doctor for CSR, because I think he's a local. You may know him. You have Jan-Raymond who's a producer. He owns 𝗕𝗏 28. He produces aromatic herbs not far from here in another region. And he's included CSR in his company. And I have Fabien Saleh, who's also with us. And this person is someone who enjoys bringing people together to exchange. This is the best definition. This person can coordinate or bring together energies for a more sustainable company. He does that in his company, at the organizational level, financial level, or even operational level. He's going to tell you more about his life and experience. He's got a wide range of experience, and he's going to help me, because at some point, you'll have to make these people talk with each other. Let's go. Today's context for CSR. I will not linger on it. Human activities has taken us beyond the 6 Earth limitations. I have my paper to remind me of these 6 earthly limits. Climate change, the erosion of biodiversity, the biochemical disruption, the change of use of the soil, and the cycle of water is completely destroyed. We've spent so much energy to bring back some balance in that. We've also traveled. We had brought new species, disruptive species, new entities in new regions. And once we had to start doing sustainable developments, we focused on greenhouse gases effects, the hole in the ozone layer, and so on. We forgot about biodiversity. We forgot about so many other key aspects. we've created more threatening conditions for our planet. In this context, criteria such as the environment, the economy, and so on, and politics as well, have to be assessed by investors, consumers. Every stakeholder along the chain value has to give their opinion, and we have to be accountable before them. So it's not about financial management, it's also about values behind the management, especially in terms of sustainable development. Of course, in all that, you have companies. In France, we have so many SMEs, and the SMEs are at the heart of the matter to change things, especially. And we have the means to do that. We can contribute as SMEs, as the PAM sector as a whole. We can make the economy more inclusive and more sustainable because we already have best practices in place. We don't always say it, we don't always write it, and our diagnoses are that we use as specifications for quality improvement. But if you hire a team in a municipality where you're going to disrupt a traditional environment, we are going to invest in innovation because we don't want to stay behind with old machines, obsolete equipment, and with obsolete calculation systems. So all these best practices, we already have them, and we do manage environmental impact. We've done so for a long time. We've been reasonable in our use of water. We've reduced our pesticides or even converted to organic production. We do manage our resources. We've already done that. Why don't we talk about it? And how should we talk about it? We have to be understandable by everyone. We have to create some comprehension grids, with the traceability that is part of our processes. The fact that we calculate our carbon footprints, having coherence and consistency between the stakeholders of the sector and the buyers. Let's write it down. Let's disseminate this information that we already have best practices. And actually, the legislative framework has been ahead of us because we've heard about legislations passed at the French level, at the European level, but they want to impose strict rules to us. We heard about Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive. We haven't translated it yet. That's how recent it is. And it imposes demands and obligations on SMEs with a very strong reporting system. And of course, we can be fined if we don't. So if we want to use those specifications, well, it's going to have an impact on SMEs. And the human factor in all that, what becomes of it? The society is changing. People want something else. We have to take care of people because we do put things in place for our employees, but we have to take it further. We have to look at the quality of life at work and what happens outside of the company. All of this taken into account, if we haven't moved about it, we have to get moving now. We do things without saying it. We have a legislative framework that is pressuring us. So instead of just having to deal with it, why don't we make it our own? Why don't we take things in our own hands to create accessible tools with a CSR-based governance? Bioplant is a proof of it. We've only existed for 15 years, but today I can say that we can make profitable, sustainable projects that will be good for the generations to come as well. We have to structure communication. There are great tools to talk about our governance, our criteria of environment, society, and governance. We have simple tools to learn more about CSR, and there are people who can work on it with us. So let's talk about it. Jean-Raymond, I want to ask you something. According to you, How did you feel at first with CSRs? You created a company in 1989. We were miles or even millions of miles away from CSRs. And now you do conservation, you have traceability, you are innovative in these issues. Tell us more about this evolution. How do you see this CSR commitment within your company? Thank you for this beautiful question. Good afternoon. Well, let me tell you what 𝗲𝗲_28 does. In the plant and fruit group, I was a producer in the 𝗥𝗡𝗏𝗏 region. We started diversifying in 1989, looking into maps. Today, we have 70 different species in maps, but we also import and trade maps. We started this approach in 2019. Back then, we had seen someone who was called 𝗕𝗶ጽ_𝗏 in our agronomy department. It was over 20 years ago. And I had kept in touch with him. He had left for another group called 𝗕𝗏. And we would meet regularly, and we thought it would be nice to work together. And in 2019, we had the opportunity to do so. So we took over a company that was called 𝗕𝗏_𝗏 that makes desiccated fruits in a vacuum packaging. And so we created a holding to support the investment. Now we have a small group with 4 structures in it, 𝗲𝗲_28, with about 70 employees, phytofood, so these desiccated fruits, for teas, herbal teas, and so on. Then we created an oil factory. We wanted to grow oily seeds grown locally in Châteaudun and turn them into oil. And we went a bit too far, and we took over a hemp factory. So it amounts to 110 employees and 20 million euros turnover. But we were not seeing very clearly about CSR. Some of our customers would talk to us about it. There were different notions, concepts, fair for life. There were many options, and we didn't know where to go. So we started by hiring someone to work on CSR issues and who had a look around to see everything that was available in terms of CSR. And that's how we realized that there was the ISO 26030, and we went to the Veritas certification office, and we decided to follow this approach. We had an existing structure, 𝗲𝗲_28, and we were taking over the other fruit company. And although there was 70 kilometers apart, we had to work together. And it was a learning process. So we decided to work together as a collaborative teamwork to go through CSR and to mix teams in this think tank. So it was based on a volunteer approach. Yes. So it didn't come from the workers. It was a will to work all together differently. Well, we wanted to have an assessment on what we were already doing. We came from the agricultural world. It's not petrochemicals. We already had everything at hand. regarding CSRs. So we wanted to know what was good, what was less good, what worked, what didn't. And thanks to the ISO specification, it was not about certification. It was about having an assessment of where we could get better. And what was interesting in this approach is that it's an evolutive approach. You start from a certain point, you set some objectives, you have a steering group to get you there, with employees that decide to join the process, and then we work. We talk with people, with different stakeholders, our suppliers, our raw material suppliers, our fruit suppliers, our equipment suppliers, service providers. We had a set of interviews with each of them, and so on and so on, in order to have a comprehensive view of our CSR practices and to come up with new CSR practices. So, apart from the ISO 26030, you didn't speak about CSRD and all the other acronyms that we could use. Because in our sector, we use common sense. We get up in the morning to come up with a good product with good raw material. We're not within a very strict regulation. However, one of our customers, the 𝗵𝗲 laboratories, have been aware because they have regulations to comply with, and even if some things are not completely compulsory, they are now being looked at because they're included in our products for the end consumer. So the 𝗵𝗲 laboratory decided to create a comprehensive process, because you actually create a concept together. You called it Green Mission Pierre Fabre. And Alexandre is actually in charge of it. And he's going to tell us how in this laboratory they have conceptualized CSR. Just a quick presentation of our laboratory, just a brief overview. They've existed for 60 years. They were created for medical products and cosmetics on the other half, 50-50 in terms of turnover. And it was a dual business. It was very diverse because this, you know that the regulation in terms of cosmetics and medical products is completely different. And the fact of being included in a region, part of a territory, as we say, it was key to us. We are from the south of France, in the Tarn region. 90% of our raw material comes from France, and 90% of our R&D is made in France. Another specificity is that I am lucky enough, as an employee of Pierre Fabre, to be employed by a company, 90% of which is owned by the company leaders. So we don't have shareholders from abroad to answer to. Of course, we want to make profit, but we know where the money goes when we make a profit and when we have strong growth. And last characteristics is that we are inspired by nature. In order to define our end products, the first product we ever made was plant-based, and ever since we've kept in this direction. So about 30% of our turnover is supported by end products in which the active product is based on a plant. So this is one of the characteristics of the company, and it shows how our DNA is really revolving around commitments on the environmental issues, traceability. This is something that we have created as it went, and at some point we needed to make it more structured. On the one hand, to have it clearer, because there's over 10,000 employees in the company. We do a lot of different things. It's not always well structured, and we wanted to have more structure around the CSR, and we defined objectives, overall ambitions, some indicators, some avenues for improvement. First, we started on our own, and then we decided to have have an external view, some certification or some outside support. And we looked at the various options. The ISO 26000 was developed at the right time. And in 2010, we decided to have our first assessment according to this certification. And now we're renewing our evaluation. And so we have the AFNOR specifications that is renewing our evaluation. And we are the first company, of this size to actually go through this entire process, this evaluation and continuous improvement process based on indicators that have been well structured. You can see it's becoming a bit more difficult. We're starting to talk about labels, about more technical and administrative things, more formal, more paperwork. We're talking about a company with over 10,000 people. I have 15 employees. Jean-Raymond has about 100. Now it's a new step, 10,000. So talking with all these people, I'm lucky enough to have also thought about inviting Fabien, and he's going to tell you who he is. At first, I'm going to tell him what he does, and then we're going to push him a bit further so that he can tell us what we're talking about with all these big words that can remain a bit blurred. Fabien, what are you doing with your life?
Well, I'm from Angers, so I'm a local. I've been working in Dublin, London, Buenos Aires, and I never thought I'd come back to Angers, but here we are. We live in different cultures, and that's a real richness. We gain so much. I came back to France, and I started off another activity. I've been working for 10 years in the organic branch of Transformer, retailer with Biocarp. I worked with Biocarp in Angers, and there I learned a great deal, mainly related to CSR. So here you're talking about people thinking economically and socially and environmentally. And they do this on a daily basis. This is who I was working with. I wanted to learn when you've taken risks, you know that you can continue to take them, basically. You have to be an entrepreneur. I created a consultancy firm called 𝗥𝗍𝗄, and this is becoming a society with a real objection, a company with a real objective, with statutes, etc. We got the 𝗕𝗏 brand. We would like to we say, this is what we want to do. This is what the daily basis is that catches up with us and makes us, postpone all of these in all these commitments. And becoming this kind of mission-based company meant that we could no longer postpone things. We had to act. So why 𝗥𝗍𝗄? Well, we wanted to talk to people and work with people who were already in a fairly virtuous way of working, and so that they could help us go further. Or we could help other people go further. The planet is being destroyed. Society perhaps is being destroyed. I'm sorry I find it bizarre that we are just a group of males up here on the stage without having women. There doesn't seem to be much equality about this. We have to move forward. We have to do better, and we have to go further and quicker. So we created 𝗥𝗍𝗄 to create principally virtuous people to go further. Virtuous people look at us and then say, but we don't need you. We're all right. We're doing okay. So we've created this consultancy where people don't want to be supported, accompanied. So that's the challenge we face. However, I think he's going to talk about this. Perhaps it will be easier for you to come up here to talk, because we're getting into the heart of the matter here now. We're going to make sure we have the means to encourage debate and discussion. I hope we're not all going to be fighting at the end, but we're going to look at the real commitments that this could represent. Well, 2025 is very rich in terms of change. CSR, between us, it's a system of continuous improvement which must encourage trust. Transparency, which is expected by the consumer and in the branch in order to share the value. CSR is there to try and constantly to improve trust and create trust. So there's lots of different words, obviously. There are loads of them. But you've got taxonomies to CSRD. You know, there's a whole load of acronyms and words. Very complex world. We have to accept that. And then you have to know how to be different according to the different value chains. We say CSR in the production world. We calculate carbon. That's part of CSR in a farming community. Words are very important. CSR, can be understood differently depending on the world in which you live. CSR then is complex because it's not an integrated system. On one side, you're going to have the standards. You're going to have regulations. We like to measure ourselves to see if we're performing well. We're going to have evaluators. We're going to have taxonomy, which is the European rules, to see if your investment is green or not. Many wars are being fought over the subject of the nuclear power. Should that be part of green investment? And then we're going to have financial assessments, the ESGs. And all of that in the aim of fighting greenwashing. Who in this room doesn't want to see their company really valued for what it is? And they don't want to see a competitor get ahead when it's just blah, blah and greenwashing. What is the real value of your company? So let me put it simply. CSR is a double-faced piece. You have an internal approach and project within the company, and on the other side of that coin, you have the assessment of the financial experts on the activity of your company. So one side is CSR, and the other side is called ESG. And we're not at the end of our trials here because ESG has become obligatory for the bank and financial systems. Today, in the banking standards that are demanded today, we ask them to make sure that in their portfolio, they can show that words are actually compliant with what they say, that their actions reflect their words. They're obliged to prove the value of their portfolio. So they have to bring proof to the table that they're doing business correctly. But that means what? It means that the market has become a co-regulator since the Green Deal. So in the last 5 or 6 years, the market is now a joint regulator. And it means that a company today which is going to ask for any kind of credit or loan is going to be assessed on its CSR in order to see the level that it will pay in terms of loans. And so if you don't pay attention, if you think that this is something that concerns others, you're in for a shock because it goes out by the door and it can come in by the window here, and you might suddenly understand why you're no longer being monitored. So when the market has become a regulator, that's what I mean. There's also a question of accessibility. CSRD, when you've got 17,000 employees 15 days ago, that's not the terminology we're going to use in the companies that are small to medium-sized or medium-sized companies in production. We're not going to talk about the similar kinds of CSRD. So we have to make sure that all of this is aligned. In France, we wanted to transform the European directive very quickly. Other countries adopted a much slower approach. I don't know if we should thank Trump or not, but we had something very complex. And under Trumpism, we've taken a step back in certain matters, and it's probably a good thing. However, the objective, the goal, is to observe the directive and say, what is its role? It's trying to industrialize all of the extra financial data of a company. Nobody now asks if you have an accountant or what your accounting is in the company. We don't ask many questions. It's the same thing for extra financial data. We're looking to stop greenwashing through comparability. And we want to make sure this is possible and accessible, legible, possible and accessible. To conclude, this is a world governed by standards and regulations. We didn't have these standards which could be certified. So Europe is actually spearheading this. But we almost had things that were very complicated, and now we've come back to omnibus, things that are much more simplified, allow us to get our feet back on the ground, and it allows us to protect small companies with regards to what major groups are going to ask of them. We are able to say now you can no longer ask for information. There's a little bit of information you can ask for, but not all that you would want. So it's something that might have been complicated, but finally we turned about and we've gone towards a simplification of CSR. Thank you, Fabien. I don't know if everybody understood that, but it's something very complex, and when you commit to sustainable development, it's difficult. But now that we have this simplified label, we're able to support and formalize extra financial information for a company for other clients. You talked about ISO 26030, which is a very demanding standard. It reflects progress. We are rated by percentages and letters. It gives us a kind of guiding light that we have to follow in order to perform in extra financial circumstances anyway. But you work with other qualifications, don't you? You are audited by quality labels, but other labels which are quite complicated, some which are demanded by your clients. So what do you want to say to Alexandre when I say, I already do all that, but at the end of the day, I have got a salesperson from your company telling me, no, this is the price. Well, I always say, well, it's not expensive enough. So it's always good to do business. We'll have a buyer. After 35 years, he retired, and there was a young person that took his place, and he said, Mr. Chevalier, I'm going to make an offer on this material. And I was like, oh, okay, well, put in a quarter of the price. Oh, no, we're going to maintain the 2025 prices. It was already fairly reasonable, but no, it wasn't reasonable enough for him. So I had to make an effort. I called Alexandre and I said, your sales agent's a bit of a pain. What can we do? So I would like to come back to a more practical basis. We've talked about great principles, But how do we really live that every day in our practices, in the way we work, in our environment, in our societies? At our level, when you look at the environment, there are certainly practices that we can improve. At 𝗕𝗏, we're working with Gaillago to try and stock carbon in the ground, and we started that 2-3 years ago. This is the 3rd year, I believe. So we're analysing, we're looking at the level of carbon that was stored in the soil, and in 5 years we'll do the same thing. We're also working with another company that I met lately, and they offer a kind of, well, it's not really a fertilizer. It's a biostimulant. It's good to see people talking on the stage, isn't it? It's a biostimulant that would help us avoid 𝗕𝗏 fertilization. So that's excellent networking for the farming side, but we were lucky to have low entry products with 0 pesticides. I'm looking at nitrogen-based ones, of course. We are working with a company in Brittany and in Normandy, and they really do have problems with water quality particularly for drinking water. So we worked a deal with subsidies, and we are going to try and offer these farmers, to try them these fertilizers that I talked about. We're going to work with them in the areas where there are drinking water stocks. So that's the agricultural level and the society level. We have to look at cost. We invested with material, and I've chatted with a colleague, an Austrian colleague, and he said, we purchase French material. So he gave me the address of the company, and so we're able to buy French material. That's societal, to try and develop locally, and it's also social. Working with different colleagues, we've got what we call the Citizen Club. So the Citizen Club is what? These are employees during work time, but also during their own time, are volunteers to animate or to moderate this club. It's roughly 10 employees in each company. And what they do is they set in motion different actions, different plans. Now, this could be anything from working with a beekeeper, and we've gone to see how she works, what she does, learn things about bees, how long does a bee live. We have a colleague who's interested in cabbages. I'm not really sure what his role is, but he has participated in some kind of competition for cabbages. We have other operations where we try and raise money. There's an operation underway for Christmas to be able to give money or presents to associations. A great many things that are really under the auspices of this name, Citizen Club. We've got the QVT. When we look at the quality of life at work, we carried out a survey with our colleagues, and we've got a rate of 7 out of 10, which is acceptable. We will look over this, though. We did a CSR assessment. We've got a little document here. So we're making sure we share all this information. More examples. We bought an industrial building in Château-d'Un, which was lit by strip lights. So we've taken out the strip lights and we've put in LED lighting. So all of these things, little bits here and there, but it all adds up. We've got plant waste, which 100% goes into the methanizer. No, it's not very complicated actions that we're talking about. You have to write them down. You have to make sure that people respect them. We've got a steering committee. We get together 4 or 5 times over the year to make sure that things are happening. We have committed to reducing our greenhouse gases by 10% before 2030. Okay, 10% is not impossible. However, at the same time, I hope the activity would have moved forward. And maybe it won't be 10%, because if we go down by 10%, but the activity has progressed by 15-20%, we'll have to tweak that. But these are very concrete actions that we put in place. We assessed, we did the carbon balance. 2 things came out of the carbon balance. The intake, the entrant materials like your fertilizers, and also freight. Freight, even though we don't do a lot, it has an impact on your carbon balance. Little things like that. We talked about the major subjects before, but you have to take it down to a daily basis, and it's little actions that, if you add them up, that contributes. We've extended our offices. There was a fuel boiler, and we said, well, okay, we changed that into heat pumps, and that means there's a great deal of less fuel, excuse me. Now you're going to stop, please, says the gentleman. You're going to maybe let someone else speak. So that's also RSE, CSR. It's spearheaded by managers, but everybody has to be involved. You'll find it's common sense. And when you write down what you want to do, you can go and find a client and say, look, you've got your green mission, you're doing all of this, that, the next thing. But look, this is what we do. It's formalized. And I'm qualified to help. What do you say to that, Jean? Well, to come back on what he said, if I may, you talked earlier, you said that there was an injunction. The regulatory injunction was important, which was spearheaded by financial specialists, and this was a challenge. We are committed. We committed through conviction as well. Today, we see that the regulatory pressure is even stronger, but we are very convinced by this project, and we have a certain lever. An example is that for the last 2 years, our CFO has asked us to commit to the carbon something project. And it means you have to declare, officially it's very British, what you're doing with carbon, what your road is, and the objective is to say why you've done it. And why have we done it? Because banks and investors asked our CFOs to do so, because we had to prove what we were doing. So we need to have the proof. We're committed, and in this approach, we have to structure an approach which targets decarbonation, looking at the climate, understand our own carbon balance, what are our greenhouse gases, and what are they created by. 98% of the source of our GESs in the Scope 3 are linked to our activity, our suppliers. So we can't work alone. We have to have people helping with us. You have to work with your suppliers to this end so that we can all reduce our impact. And if you want to go to the end of this approach and the carbon trajectory, we've listed a number of investments in order to reduce our greenhouse gases, with our industrialists making energy savings, looking at the buildings, making savings here, there, and everywhere. But there will still be residual emissions. We are an industrial activity, so we're going to have emissions. But we went as far as to say, well, let's do some carbon sequestration, capturing the carbon, and contribute to the world's carbon neutrality, as France has committed to do at an international level. We want to contribute to this goal by 2015. Now, to do that, we have to be able to show what's the interest behind this, what's pushing us towards this, why on earth would we do it? Well, for us, it's a way of contributing to two objectives. On the one hand, trying to work with our suppliers to ensure that they reduce their footprint at the same time. Secondly, when you choose this path and you want to put solutions based in nature, planting trees, etc., well, it's a way of contributing to restoring ecosystems. We're not going to talk about carbon when we do this kind of project. We're going to talk about restoring the ecosystem, because the main challenge that I touched on earlier is that we depend on biodiversity in terms of the use of our plant matter and in water. So this is an industrial use of water for the pharmaceutical and cosmetic domain. We know that we have a huge impact. So in 2022, we saw there was a climate crisis. There's a climate crisis. We had prefectural bylaws saying that they could possibly stop us from using water. And this was a huge challenge for us. We need it. So this CSR becomes an anticipation lever in order to focus what's going to be next, what the constraints are going to be at legal level, what is going to be missing, where are we going to be lacking, what resources are going to be lacking. And that's the objective of all our approach. So to come back to my question, all of that is, it's great, but do you use it to demand of others, people? Do you demand of others to perform like you, or do you help them? Well, we try and support them. We're trying to share value, and we would like our partners to progress with us. Well, that's excellent. If CSR can create dialogue, that's great for business. Fabien. These people don't need you. They're talking to each other. Are they speaking the same language? There's some wonderful approaches here, and I think everybody should be congratulated, especially with what we had from Pierre Fabre, where they undertake engagements. And we can see that this field is a leader in that domain. However, when you're talking about support in CSR terms, the problem is to make sure that everybody has their word to say. Because the stakeholders, that's not just the employees or shareholders. It's clients, it involves suppliers, and the whole field has to work together. Finance as well. Perhaps you're surprised that we're talking about finance in CSR, but the reality of the matter is everybody is going to win if everybody is well. If the whole chain, it's much like a rugby team, if the whole chain works, if everybody makes the effort at his or her level, it's already huge. And the second principle is we have to try to understand each other. We don't all understand CSR in the same way. Production, processing, retail, it's not always the same understanding. The retailer, for example, needs to show his transparency. If there's no traceability from the producer right to the retailer, he could lose his business. And CSR is a collective project. So this is part of a much bigger system, which includes the whole value chain, from the seed right up to the end user. Well, yes. Let's have another example, not a sporting metaphor. It's the music part. Make sure that everybody reads their music so that the tune is as melodious as possible. So everybody has to follow his own score without feeling they're drowning out people in the next section or it's benefiting the people in the other section. No, everybody has to play their role properly. So we have to be, I suppose we're in the middle, and we have to make sure that all the players get together and speak. But they don't all talk the same language. So yes, if you need an interpreter, someone who's going to help make sure that the real interest is put back into the heart of the discussion. Change is possible with small steps. Sometimes we want to change society, we want to change the world. No. When you need to start small, it's great to understand at small scale how you can build projects together and to take these small steps together. There you dig up energy. And you would agree that it doesn't matter about the number of employees. It's all about having a shared vision for a better planet. That's not just words. These are facts that are formalized in certification standards. And that project, that approach today, we have to live daily. We do live daily in business. I'm working on a financial paper at the moment. I've seen all the banks in the neighborhood, and the two things that they've asked of me after my accounts, they want to know about your stakeholder questionnaire and the Sustainable Development Report. And that means what? These criteria have their role to play in a banking committee as much as anywhere else if they want to support an investment or not. So be careful, be vigilant, surround yourself with people who can help you. We have a great many people who are very well trained in this field in France. So if you will, we're going to perhaps conclude, and we'll have a very short period of questions, I'm afraid, because we are running late. If you summarize the subjects that we've talked about today, we have to draw up agreement tables between the stakeholders and the branch. Like I say, being a translator, being an interpreter, making sure people are talking the same language, making sure you're using a common standard to measure the impacts in the environmental, societal, and governance categories with, once again, shared standards and references which challenge us, the ideas that we have to progress. They're going to allow us to adopt a standard that's going to be comparable right along the value chain. And in the other areas of economic sector, you could have, the photovoltaic sector with the palms. We have to have the same criteria when we look at durability and sustainability. Make sure that the sales agents are aligned in terms of their CSR commitments. Nobody's not going to say, oh, I want 10 cents more on the price. No, because we're in compliance with the CSR demands of the client, and amongst these demands, commitments, there's respect and equity when it comes to working. He can no longer cross the line of asking for the extra 10 cents. And when you do that well, then you have to learn to share, to communicate in a very transparent fashion across all the criteria, because tomorrow a financer, when he knows that you communicate, is going to ask for evidence, and you can give it to them, and you're going to be able to fit in the grid that allows you to then move on to the Commission. I'd like to thank all of the gentlemen here for everything they have contributed to the debate, and if you have questions, we are there to take them. They have many things in their head. If you want to pick their brains, now's the time.
Merci.
You were wonderful. I found you thoroughly wonderful. Plant producers, CSR, for us, it's always between when the news is on and the telephone doesn't ring anymore, when all the employees have gone home, it's there where we end up doing all the paperwork. So with the interprofession could help us with the dossier, so that we have CSR formulas to fill in which are easy, which are standardized, which are intelligent, that you no longer want to know if we've got child labor. Can we facilitate this somewhere? Because when you're a map producer and you've got 10 clients, no more, you have, CSR files that were attacked by them from all sides. And it's just extra work for us, and it's enormous for a small producer. And I know that when I'm doing paperwork, I'm not in my fields, and that's the problem. We have an overdose of administration in France, and we mustn't let ourselves be bogged down in this and waste time. I think we'll let the President speak here. Oh, that's not really our subject, but it's very complicated. More complicated than you might think, because simplicity is hard. When you want to keep things simple, it's extremely hard. You must remain intelligent about this. Use your common sense. We carried out a project with Phytolia. We tried to look at recognition of standards and not add anything else to it. So my advice is that this could be a project, could be an approach, but you also have to recognize the things that you already do in terms of traceability, everything that's already quite useful in a CSR questionnaire. And this should be taken into account. So, yes, we have to try and align what we already do. That's essential. Before moving on to attacking a project which might be simple but actually is complicated. I get up early in the morning, I go to bed late at night. In the company, well, paperwork's necessary, and it's always annoying, it's always difficult. But when you do this kind of formal paperwork, it's really your action plan and your diagnosis that takes all the time. The rest you live on a daily basis. So the day that you're going to go and work on a reference started or an interprofessional one, it's great. Interprofessions are wonderful. And this could be the interprofession that could maybe organize, we could organize a standard that really covers all the maps. I know that 𝗕𝗏𝗏 has already done some work in this area. Other players within the sector have as well. Look at the value chain, see who's done what, ask people. There are many students out there who can compile the documents for you and do a good work and do some great work. Let's not reinvent something. There are standards already in place which are very good with specifications which are qualitative. Maybe you need to add an extra audit or an extra subscription. Now, all of that is paying. You have to pay for it, though. Let's try and just build something which is a shared standard, but let's not get bogged down in the paperwork because that's not really the challenge of CSR. What we want to do is highlight what we do every day to help people who are growing plants. I mean, there's people that can design it all beautifully, but really, essentially, what we're doing is that.
I don't know if this is to be worked on by the entire profession because there are already many regulatory issues to be worked on first before CSR. But still, we can support you. We've worked on the 𝗥𝗢𝗄𝗏 platform where you do something once. There's a questionnaire to fill once. Yes, you have to upload your documents once. And if you have a growing CSR, we are a bronze medal for the moment. We can still improve. But when your customer or client ask you questions, you send them on this platform and they can check everything they want. So they can see everything you've already done without you having to create a new file, especially for them. And there's also the CSR portal by the government. Their passport, a CSR passport tool that is free and that can really help you starting with your CSR file. It's valid from very small companies to larger companies. So I think we have to stop there. I would like a great round of applause for our moderator, who was great. You were all perfect.
Extrêmement intéressant et très clair et vraiment concret. Merci beaucoup.